That to me alone was attractive enough that the second that I was given that chance, I took it. In hockey, I was the last guy, I think, in the world to play with a wood stick. You probably remember that.
Well, welcome to the Athletes in Sports podcast. We have a super special guest today, Ty McDevitt. He is currently the head baseball coach at the University of Minnesota for the Golden Gophers. Could be the youngest head coach ever at Gopher history. I'm not 100% sure on that, but we'll uncover that here soon. Ty also was a pitcher for the Gophers after high school. And fun fact, Ty and I grew up together. We went to Eastview High School, played hockey together, and a few other sports. And Ty, welcome. Thank you for coming on today. And we'll kind of get this started off by, you're a brand new head coach. You've been a coach for the Gophers for a while now, but how does it feel to get that head coaching position?
Yeah, I mean, it's busy. It's fun. As I'm sure a lot of people are aware, it's fast-paced in college athletics right now. So learning new things, discovering new things every day, and wouldn't have it any other way.
And, I think the interview process was a little bit lengthy. Talk about, did you feel like you had a good shot at getting this job, or was it kind of questionable just based on, you open up a head coaching job like this, the floodgates open, there's so many people that probably want it. How did you feel throughout that process?
Well, I think, after finding out John was retiring around Thanksgiving last year, it started to enter my mind whether that was something that I was interested in. And, I didn't really give it much space. I just kind of said, hey, listen, I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing, keep my head down, keep being the best assistant coach that I possibly could be, keep learning, keep taking care of my student athletes the way that I have throughout the course of my career. And if it's available, and it's the right position, then I'm going to get it. And if not, it is what it is, and I think having that mentality and approaching each day with that, sort of micro mindset rather than thinking about what's going to happen in the future, but what can I do right here, right now, today to make an impact? I think that really had the biggest impact on my ability to be hired. I wasn't worried about what was going to happen, just focused on what I could control.
100%. I feel like a lot of people do get lost in these outcomes that they really can't control. So for you just to stay focused on your day-to-day and what you need to do to be the best coach and best version of yourself, that's definitely something that I think younger athletes could benefit from, because they're probably shooting to be in the MLB, be in the NHL, make all these pro teams, make college teams, but you can't really control that. And if we'll take a step back here, you grew up in a household with 4 boys. You're one of three brothers, all similar ages. Everybody's playing sports. What was it like growing up in a household with you and three other brothers?
Competitive, still is. Yeah, that's never changed. You had a first seat to it when you have 3 brothers, and we're all of close enough age to compete with each other. Everything was a competition. Everything, whether it was ping pong, games in the backyard, who could eat their dinner the fastest. Everything was a competition. There was always bets placed on it, and winners got treated differently. And that was kind of the environment that I grew up in. We were always butting heads. We were always competing against each other and seeing who could be the best.
Now, trust me, I've been to your house and seen the chaos. It's a fun atmosphere, but also the competition is high. So you're kind of always fighting for probably who gets the spot at the dinner table and who gets to have their friends over first. And but that probably played a role into you getting into sports. Like, did you feel like you were following your older brother and whatever sports he was playing, or who influenced you on kind of getting involved in a variety of different sports at a young age?
It's actually funny you say that. Specifically baseball, my mom was the one that got me into baseball. So my dad was a high school teacher, and he was a coach. So a lot of his summers were spent off coaching, and my mom was off. She was a teacher as well. She was off during the summertime. And she would play with myself and my older brother at the time. She'd play wiffle ball with us. She taught us how to play baseball. She taught us how to throw. She taught us how to hit. She taught us how to catch. And so she gets all the credit in the world for teaching me how to play baseball. And so, yeah, I think from an early age, both my parents are athletic. They both played sports growing up. Sports was just always something that was a part of our family dynamic. We were always going to sporting events. We were always competing internally. We always had a wiffle ball game going, a backyard football game going, backyard hockey game going. We always had
You had
something
the
going
perfect
on.
backyard
A
setup
good backyard for hockey.
playing
Yeah.
sports. Any
Yeah,
sport,
yeah,
really. I
any
remember
sport,
playing
really.
football, basketball. Your dad would flood the pond or, flood the sport court and we skated. I think we had some like might and squirt practices out in your backyard.
Yeah. So just like anything, I mean, it definitely takes a village, in regards to building an athlete, and everybody's village looks different. But my village was three brothers, a great house to be able to do that type of stuff in, and two super supportive parents that were always looking for opportunities for us to get outside, to go play sports and to go compete.
And do you feel like there's a little bit of like with parents today and their kids getting involved in sports, is that lacking a little bit? Like, do you think, the things that you were doing in your backyard, is that being done today in American households?
Based off of my, assessment, I think that we've overdone it with structure. So I think that there's been a lot of engagement. There still is a lot of engagement with parents and households who are interested in participating in sports, but it seems like everything these days is structured. Rarely do you see somebody go outside and play a wiffle ball game in the backyard with kids in their neighborhood, or do a pickup football game and play 3-on-2 or 2-on-3 with a all-time quarterback like we used to. Rarely do you see that type of stuff happen. It seems like there's always got to be a structure component to it, a pay for it. You've got to have jerseys. You got to have a meticulous layout or a setup.
Everybody needs a trophy.
Everybody needs a trophy. And again, I sound like an old man talking right now, but I definitely have noticed a significant decrease in the amount of just unstructured playing that happens, and how quickly kids can transition from one sport to the next. I mean, again, talking about how we used to do it, we'd start playing football, and by the end of it, we'd hit baseball, basketball, and hockey all in the same day, and we've made up our own sport in the middle. It's just, that's the way that we did it. And I think having that ability to play multiple sports, to be able to do, different environments, to be able to make up your own rules, all of that benefited my long-term athletic career, just because you've got to be flexible, you've got to be dynamic, both as an athlete, but also mentally.
Well, and it was all free. Like, you got all the kids in the neighborhood and from school coming over, and you guys didn't have to sign up for, I never signed up to play football because I feel like I played enough football in your backyard, and I was like, I don't want to get hit, so this is good enough for me. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of that day, those days where you just went to the park and played a pickup game of football with whoever's, available, are kind of gone. And it's kind of a safety thing. A lot of parents might not feel safe letting their kids just roam the neighborhood. But there is this just monetization of sports, and everybody's doing these camps and on all these AAA teams, and they think their kids need to be the best at that sport to play that sport. But you can, there's so many benefits for these kids playing all these sports, even if it's not their like sport that they want to, try to make it to the next level in. You're gonna benefit from playing multiple different sports. And which kind of leads me into, like, for baseball for you, when did you know? Because I know we played on the hockey team together. We played a lot of golf together growing up. You also played football, and baseball was kind of your main passion and dream. What age did you feel like you were like, baseball is it for me? Like, this is where I want to try to make it to college and live out that baseball career?
Probably not until my junior year of high school, honestly. And that was when recruiting calls started to happen, and you'd start to get stuff in the mail back then, about camps and prospect stuff. So really not until my junior year. Up until then, it was my favorite sport was whatever one we were playing currently.
100%.
And again, I think that's something that you don't hear from a lot of people. Everybody seems to specialize pretty young. They pick a favorite sport pretty young, and then you get the high burnout rates. And I think that's what you're seeing a lot of right now.
Mm-hmm. When you're evaluating players to come play for the University of Minnesota, are you looking at, hey, did that kid play a different sport in high school? Are they going to be well versed, or does that not matter as much for when you're looking for different athletes that you want to recruit into the program?
No, it definitely matters. Is it the number one thing? No. There's requisite skill set that's required to play baseball at this level. So once you figure out if a prospect has that requisite skill set, then you start to dig deeper into what are some more of the intangibles that they might possess. And high on that list would be whether or not they were a multi-sport athlete prior to high school, in high school, even at this level. I think anytime that you can find somebody that has played multiple sports, that has been on multiple teams, different types of teams, they bring a different level of athleticism, but also a different level of experience to the table, because it takes a different mindset to compete on the hockey rink or on the football field than it does on the baseball field. And there's not a right or a wrong way to compete, but when you can have all of those different types of abilities or types of intensity levels that you can jack up or turn down as the game requires, that's a skill set. That's an asset that you can have and apply to your own sport.
When it was like when we were, playing high school hockey, we knew that the football kids, and you were one of them. But you didn't play high school football for that long. I think maybe some concussions got in the way, but like we knew when those football players came into tryouts, like those guys were coming full speed, and they're usually the toughest guys in the rink, and so you wanted those guys on your team and looking out for you. But for baseball, it's kind of like hockey season gets done. And for you, did baseball feel like, oh, this is kind of a relief, a little bit slower pace? Or were you like, hey, I'm dialed in. I want to make it, be the best player I can be? Because for golf, for me, that was definitely, I'm like, oh, I could relax a little bit. I can play some golf. But how was that transition from playing hockey and then moving right into baseball? Was it slow pace? Was it fast? How did you feel going into that?
I think a lot of it just was, like I talked about a little bit, just the intensity and the way that you need to modulate your intensity in baseball versus in hockey or in football, and that controlled aggression that you play with. I think that was one of the assets that I was able to have on the baseball field, is that I played baseball with a little bit of a hockey mentality. In hockey, you get shifts. And so you got 30 seconds to a minute at the longest that you're out on the ice, and it's a full burst of intensity, of speed, of passion to try to execute on whatever you're trying to execute on. And you could apply that to baseball, whether you're a pitcher or you're a hitter. The game's not constantly right in front of you. You get gaps between the game, gaps between pitches, gaps between plays. And you have to learn and be able to take a breather, reset your mind, reset your body, and then apply full intensity to the next pitch or to the next play. And so when you talk about transitioning between sports, I think it just came down to, being able to apply some concepts from the previous sport into the next season. But you definitely saw the guys that got stuck playing the same sport. You could fall into a little bit of a lull where it was the same things that you were doing or same mistakes you were making, and having that ability to change up and play different sports gave a freshness and kind of a renewed passion each season for what you were doing.
Yeah, you just kind of get, it's like springtime. So just a breath of fresh air, kind of getting into the next sport, hanging out with maybe a different crowd of people, maybe a couple people come over with you from that other season. But it moving into college is probably a whole nother ball game. And, for you going to the University of Minnesota, kind of right in your backyard, what did that recruiting process look like for you? Were you looking at multiple different schools, or was the University of Minnesota like, hey, I'm set on going here? Was it more of a tough decision?
It wasn't hard at all for me. The University of Minnesota was a place that I had always wanted to be. And the second that I got an opportunity I took it. So I was recruited by a few other schools. I had some conversations. I took a few visits, but the second that I was offered any opportunity at the University of Minnesota, that was where I wanted to be. I've had some family friends that have played in the program. I've known some people that were mentors for me growing up that have played in the program, and obviously had heard unbelievable things about its ability to compete at a national level, but also our ability as a program here to develop people for the next 50 years of their lives. And that to me alone was attractive enough that the second that I was given that chance, I took it.
Do you know someone who could benefit from this episode? If so, please take the time to share it with them. Whether it's an athlete, a coach, a parent, or just someone who loves inspiring stories, we want to get this message out, and we need you to help make that happen.
And now for you, you had a chance to play for the Gophers and be an assistant coach, and now as the head coach. From all that experience, what are like some things where you might be like, okay, I'm never doing that again, or this is something I would change and want to do differently? Like, what do you see the future of the program going based on all the experience that you've had?
Well, I mean, just in general, college sports are changing so rapidly. It's becoming harder and harder to play at the highest level with the amount of people that are in each sport and with all of the different transfer rules and all of that type of stuff. To be at a Power Five, to be at a Power Five or a Power Four institution, it borders on professional sports. It really does. So I think to look at any previous year and say things were wrong is a really poor way to look at it. It's very short-sighted. So will we do things that are different? For sure. But I would hope that, this year will be different than last year, and the next year will be different than this year, just because we're learning. We're constantly learning. We're constantly taking in information. We're constantly adapting to the changing game and our surroundings and what's going on. So we're going to constantly try to evolve here to be able to put together the best team that we possibly can on the field. But I think you have to look at that with a critical eye and really decide that there is no right and there is no wrong. There just what is. And we've got to find a way in this environment with this group to be able to put the best team together.
100%. And what do you feel like some of the biggest challenges you're facing as a head coach, just with all this NIL stuff going on and the transfer portal? Like, if you were to boil it down to like one thing, like, oh gosh, this is a challenge. Like, what are you facing right now as a coach?
Well, there's a lot of them. You mentioned the NIL piece and the transfer portal piece. That's a difficult component for sure. You've got athletes that have unlimited transfer windows. So after every season, you're essentially a free agent. You could have a roster of 40 guys one day and a roster of 0 the next. So you're constantly trying to guess on what's going to happen in regards to your roster year over year. Plus, in our sport, you've got the draft component, which is a significant component. Every year we've got at least one guy, but sometimes up to 4 or 5 guys drafted off of our roster. And you don't know whether or not they're going to get drafted until mid-July. So it happens so late in the summertime. You're trying to get people admitted into school. And you're trying to backfill whatever spots that you lose from the transfer portal or with incoming freshmen. So there's an endless level of pieces, of Tetris pieces that need to fall into place on any given year. So I think just in general, that fluidity of your roster is your biggest challenge as a head coach, just trying to manage all of the different moving pieces at any point in the year.
You're just fitting all the puzzle pieces together. And because how many other coaches are on your staff?
So we have 3 other coaches, and then we've got a director of operations. So and they're phenomenal with helping, obviously recruit and develop and all of that type of stuff. But I'm telling you, it's a daily arithmetic, just trying to figure out, okay, who's coming, who's going, are we prepared for this year? Are we set up for success in the following years? And the way that college sports are trending right now, it's not getting less competitive. So you got to make sure that you're putting a good product on the field.
Oh, 100%. And what do you like, because it's almost now it's more than just the baseball. Like as a head coach, you got to focus on kind of the business side of it too. And baseball is there obviously, and you want to put the best, team on the field. But to do that, you need to have that business side of it, recruitment, marketing. But when you look at the baseball, are there things that have changed from when you were a player till now on like how athletes show up, how they train, how they get ready for games, or there's some kind of core principles as getting ready to play a baseball season that you did and maybe your parents did when they were little?
Yeah, there's some of both, right? There's the tried and true fundamentals of the game of baseball. You've got to throw the baseball over the plate. You've got to put the ball in play as a hitter. You've got to field the baseball and get outs. Like there's no time clock in baseball. You've got to get 27 outs if you want to win a baseball game. So those things, regardless of how long baseball exists, those will never change. And there's a preparation process that's required to make sure that your team is prepared to do those things. Now, how you go about the development of throwing the baseball harder, hitting the baseball harder, being able to gain more range as a defender. Those are all things that I think are constantly evolving when it comes to your sport performance programming, your athletic training programming, when it comes to your visual awareness and the types of programs that we have for our guys on that end of things. So there's aspects of player development that are constantly evolving, and you're trying to be as cutting edge as you possibly can in finding different innovative ways to make guys better. Because that's a reality is you in the recruiting process, you try to get really good players in. That's number one. But then the next step is trying to take those really good players and make them into even better players. And then once you have even better players, how do you make them pro prospects? So it's sort of a 3-step process. And along the way, if you don't execute the fundamentals of the game, it doesn't matter how hard you throw. It doesn't matter what your exit velocity is or how hard you hit the baseball if you can't make contact with it. So you're always juggling, like what you mentioned, you're juggling the new age, innovation in player development while sticking to the hard, tried and true principles of what baseball is that you can't deviate from, or you can't have a baseball game. If you can't throw the ball over the plate, you can't have a baseball game. It doesn't matter how hard you throw it.
Yep, 100%. And a little bit of that's probably some luck too. And I know you were probably a little bit of a superstitious guy. Do you remember any of the weird quirks or anything that you did, like whether it was baseball, hockey, football, that you might have did that? Like, what was I doing?
You might remember them better than I do. I've got some superstitions. They're more in recruiting and stuff like that now.
Right.
But on the field, I mean, we get new cleats every year here, multiple pairs of cleats every year here. I played 5 years. I wore the same cleats from the first game to the very last game that I played.
Wow.
And they were ripped up and torn to shreds and patched together. I'm not a new is better guy. I like what I like. So if you want to call that a superstition, maybe in hockey, I was the last guy I think in the world to play with a wood stick. You probably remember that.
Well, and your golf clubs were ancient.
My golf clubs are still ancient. So maybe not along the lines of superstition, but certainly a new is not always better. I like something that's been well used that has some character to it rather than the newest, coolest gadget.
100%. I mean, there's been guys that were, Babe Ruth was good with a wood bat, and because do you guys now play wood bat or metal?
No, we're still metal. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know much about baseball, as you know.
We tried.
I know. I remember going to your house. My dad came over and we were trying to throw and we were doing stuff with your dad and hitting, and I just couldn't do it. It was just not like. I think your dad was like, "Yeah, Max, just stick to hockey." But it was a little too late. I think I was like in middle school or something. But wasn't the best. And I tried a softball game back. You and my buddy Andrew Dieters, who helped us start our in Sports Foundation. Yeah, we've met a few times. Andrew's a big baseball guy. We did a softball tournament up in Swanville a couple of years ago, and I was a catcher the whole time in the in the softball game. I did get in the game to go to the championship game. I had a walk-off because I hit the ball off the toe of the bat, and it was a dribbler going to the pitcher, and it just kept spinning and spinning and spinning, and the pitcher couldn't grab it, and the guy went home and won the game. So that was the end of my softball/baseball career.
How about that?
Oh gosh. So are you still playing a lot of golf?
Not nearly as much as I'd like to. I actually got out last night and I'm sore from it. I'm admitting that, but I got out last night. I've only played twice this year. So unfortunately there's sacrifices that need to be made, and that's one of them. I'm hoping to get out a couple more times this summer, but not nearly as much as I used to play.
Yeah, because right now is probably a busy time for you. Recruiting and
yeah. It's hard to find 4 hours, kids and work, and you know how that is.
Is it against coach regulations to bring recruits out to the golf course?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know on that one, but it would be quite the procedure to try to make that happen. That's something I might have to check on. That's not a bad idea, actually.
That could be your way, because that's how I've gotten to do golf, is taking clients and vendors. It's not the weekend golf with the buddies. It's like, oh, this is a work thing.
Yeah. It's not a bad idea.
Oh gosh. I'll never forget when we were in high school, and you were a little bit of a troublemaker. You caused some. I knew this would come up. I knew something would come up. But I remember we were in study hall, and I think you had detention. I don't know what you had detention for, but I went.
You're probably thinking of somebody else. That's not me.
It could have been not. Maybe it wasn't you, but I remember we swept the hallways at Eastview and just to serve some detention. But I was like, we probably would have made a good podcast team in high school if that would have been a thing in sitting in study hall or detention, interviewing the rest of the school student body.
Well, if I remember it right, I did get detention. I'm sure I didn't do anything that deserved it, but I did get detention, and I had to sweep the halls of the school. And you had offered to come help me as a friend. Sweep the halls. And I think whoever was in charge of detention, that was the first they'd ever heard of somebody requesting to help sweep the hallways. And we made a good team. We covered a lot of ground, and we did a good job, and I paid my price. And we solved the world's problems those days.
If things don't work out, we could always go back to being a cleaner or janitor.
And we might have to someday. Yeah.
Someday. That's the real American dream.
Yeah.
And so you're a father now, and one on the way. Is that what I heard?
Yep. Soon. Another one on the way. Yeah. And
how old's your first?
My first is about to be 3 in August.
About to be 3.
Yep.
And you have a daughter, right?
It is a daughter, and we've got a boy on the way in August.
Awesome.
And his name is going to shock you when you find out, but I'll keep it a secret for now.
You're not sharing?
I'm not sharing, but you'll be familiar with it.
Okay. I can read between the lines. And as a parent, are there certain things that you want for your kids that you had growing up, whether it's involvement in sports or just, raising one kid, multiple kids? It's a battle, with 3, but it's one of the funnest things ever. And you want the best for your kids, but what are some things that you're thinking about as a parent? Are sports in the cards, or is it kind of like, hey, you try whatever you want to do and find what you're passionate about?
Well, I think certainly sports are in the cards just because they're such a life skill. I've talked with my wife a lot about how we want to raise our kids, and sports is a component of that. Not a specific sport, not here's the sports you get to pick from, but just athletics in general. And you and I have both been benefits of what sports do for you and your mentality and your resiliency and your toughness and your ability to work together in groups. I mean, the list goes on and on with the benefits that sports provide. So we'll certainly have our kids involved in sports. We'll certainly have them involved in a variety of different sports when they're young, especially to see which ones they gravitate towards. And it keeps them active. It keeps them outside. It keeps them moving. It keeps their feet in the grass. All great things for lifelong health. So, yes, I mean, to answer your question, we're certainly going to raise our kids with sports being a part of hopefully a well-rounded, individual that we create, but also allowing them to do what, follow their heart, do what they want to do. So we've got no, aspirations of turning them into the next big league baseball player or, women's professional hockey player. We're just going to try to create an environment that is rich with learning and with failure, and with resiliency, and sports happens to be one piece of that.
Definitely. What are some of the other pieces that you guys are thinking about as parents for your kids?
I thought one of the most impactful things that my parents made all of us do was take piano lessons. And I'm the least musical, artistic person that you'll ever find. I did probably 12 years of piano lessons and got 2 years out of it. But the actual act of doing it was a coordinated effort on my parents' half to make sure that we're not one-dimensional people, that we have the ability to blend with different types of people who have different skill sets and different passions, and also learn different things that are well outside of our comfort zone. So to say it's going to be piano or it's going to be guitar or it's going to be singing, I certainly don't know at the moment, but I think having an environment that enforces being well-rounded and being able to blend with different groups of people and pull on different levers of skill sets is going to be important regardless of what their passions really are.
100%. Yeah, it's and it kind of just goes back to listening to your kids, because they'll tell you what they want to do. And sometimes you do need to give them that little push. Like sometimes we've signed my daughter up for soccer and she just does not want to do it, but she's doing skating lessons right now and she loves it. And I'm like, awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
keep doing that. But as your oldest is 3, have you gotten her into any sports yet or activities, or what's kind of that life as a 3-year-old right now?
She plays, she's got her 1 day a week soccer at school, which she loves. And then we come home and practice in the backyard, and she shows me what Coach Ethan taught her at school and tells me that I'm doing it wrong, and all the typical.
But you probably are.
Stuff. I probably am. I wouldn't know a thing about it, but and the biggest thing is we just try to get outside. Even in the winter, even when it's snowing out, we just try to get outside. We try to get get our kids outside as much as we possibly can. Have them stay active, come up with games. One of the most fun things that we do with my daughter and then with some of the neighbors is we put together obstacle courses, so we just make them up on the spot. We got a balance beam and you jump off a rock and you walk on the balance beam and you got to kick the soccer ball into the soccer goal and then you got to run back to the finish line. And they could do it for hours and hours and hours on end. No stopwatches needed. Nobody needs to be a winner. Nobody needs to be a loser. They're just having fun. And I think it's the completion of a task that is what gives them that, dopamine hit. And so being able to do that rather than sticking them in front of a screen, it's just fun to watch the little brain work. And of course, me, the coaching mindset, I'm trying to figure out, okay, why does she like doing this so much? And what are some other skills that we could implement to, change direction or get her faster in a straight line or get her to balance on one leg better. But for her, it's just pure raw fun. I get to do an obstacle course. I get to give my dad a high five at the end of it, and I get to go do it all over again.
Yep. You probably have a YouTube show on that.
Yeah, probably.
Well, a couple other things I just wanted to hit on. I know mental health is a huge part of your life. I know you battled some concussions. I know you went through Lyme's disease and maybe still battling some of that. What are some techniques that you've used to stay mentally focused, stay in a positive attitude, amongst just, being in the position that you are as a head coach for a large university? How much does mental health play a role in your day-to-day life?
Yeah. Constantly. I think anybody that tells you that mental health isn't a part of their day-to-day battle is lying, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all have our challenges. We've all got our demons. We've all got things that weigh on us and drag us down. And so having a process and a procedure to be able to stay where you need to be, when you need to be there, is so important. And again, I think trying to get rid of all of the stress and all of the challenges that life throws at you, it's not attainable. It's just not. I mean, you're raising kids yourself. We talk to our players about it all the time. You can't avoid the hard. Life's hard. Things are hard. Sports are hard. Life's hard. It's all hard. So trying to get rid of hard is not doable. It's how can you manage that so that you're where you need to be when you need to be there. So I've relied on a lot of different techniques. I need to get better at a lot of them. But some breathing techniques, some cold immersion stuff has been very helpful. Some sauna work, some meditation. I've tried talk therapy. I've tried EMDR. I've tried a variety of different things that have helped me to open up, my understanding of just who I am and how my brain operates and what is valuable to me. So it's a topic that, I think previous to going through my Lyme journey and being sick, I thought I really knew about mental health and had a good grasp for all of the different challenges that people faced. And then, the saying is that you don't really know until you know. Mm-hmm. And I think now I know that it can be tough. It can be sticky. It can be mucky. But there are tools, there are resources out there. You've just, like everything else, you just got to be willing to dive in. And a lot of it is putting your ego aside.
Mm-hmm. And do you, from your experience with all of that, do you feel like you've learned some tips that you implement into your coaching style, whether it's with your players, with your staff, any sort of techniques that you promote to others so that they can be the best versions of themselves too?
Yeah, the most success I've had is just introducing people to all of the different techniques that there are out there. Some people do better with talk therapy. Some people do better with journaling. Some people do better with meditation. Some people do better with breathing exercises. Some people do better with grounding work. Some people do better with just communicating with a small group of friends. So from what I found, there's no one size fits all in regards to being mentally healthy. I think having a variety of different options and figuring out what part or which one works for you in, the circumstance that you're in is so important. That way you've got a tool belt of a lot of different tools that you can draw on rather than relying on one specific thing. And if it doesn't work, then now I'm in panic mode,
100%.
Hey everyone, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about the In Sports Foundation. At In Sports, we're all about helping kids get more involved in sports. We do this through providing free camps, scholarships, and team sponsorships, all to help reduce the cost of sports and getting more kids into the game. Through sports, kids can learn valuable life lessons, stay active, and maintain their mental well-being. To support our mission and help us get more kids into the game, visit our website at insportsfoundation.org to make a donation. Together, we can make a difference.
Yeah. And that's something that we do with our In Sports Foundation at all the free camps that we put on. We have this program called Be the Best You, and we teach kids about goal setting, self-regulation. We do some breathing techniques, and then self-confidence. What does it look like to be confident in yourself. And you don't have to be the very best at whatever you're doing. You just have to be the best version of yourself and truly feel good about it. Because I think there's a lot of negativity out there with social media and, just what people are reading online and some of the bullies out there. And if you can, just worry about yourself and how your feelings are, you're gonna make the world around you a lot better place.
Definitely. And we talk to our players constantly about that. Is one of the best ways to learn about yourself and become a better version of yourself is to take an interest in somebody other than yourself. And it's one of the hardest things to do because we get so wrapped up in our stuff. I call it our own muck all the time. We're always grinding on what's going on in our world and our life, whether you're a baseball player or you're an athlete in a different sport or you're just a human in general. It's so easy for us to get wrapped up in just what's going on in our own little world. And you start to have conversations with other people about what's going on in their life and the struggles and challenges that they have. And first of all, you realize you're not alone. Everybody's going through something, and there's a feeling of camaraderie, and you lose the isolation feeling once you realize that. So all of these things are just so important that you're open to having the conversation surrounding these really difficult, really challenging, sometimes really messy subjects. But like I said, we talk about that with our guys all the time. If you're having a tough time, the first thing you can do is just go take an interest in somebody other than yourself and see where that leads you.
Yeah. And I feel like, way back in the day, probably even before we were playing sports, it was like it was just so hard and emotions didn't matter and you just had to work the hardest. And now I feel like, especially in college, like it's opened up a lot where you do have the platform to talk to other people and talk about your feelings and not feel like, oh, I'm weak or, I'm too soft to be opening up like this. And it just sounds like you're probably the type of coach that does have that, open door, come talk to me about whatever. And cause you at the end of the day, it's not just about the baseball. It's about growing these young athletes into men and to be good parents and be successful after baseball because their baseball career is going to come to an end at some point unless they keep coaching like you are. But I think what you're doing is great. And I think you'd be, just a great coach for these young men to learn from, especially from somebody who's as young as you and has been through it, not in a pretty recently. Are you probably the youngest head coach the Gophers have had, do you think?
Well, John was younger than I am when he took over. He was like 24 or something, but wow. I think I am the youngest in Power 5 or Power 4, whatever you call it now. So I am younger and there's obviously benefit to that and your ability to relate with the guys and today's, current lifestyle for somebody of their age. And it wasn't that long ago before I was on the field doing the same things. But I mean, to speak to your point, just because I'm not playing anymore and just because we're coaching now, it doesn't mean that we're done learning. It doesn't mean that we're done being coached. And that's one of the things that I talk with my staff about regularly is, I want them involved in things that they're getting coached on, whether it's doing, a lesson of some sort, a golf lesson, a mixed martial arts lesson, something that's requiring them to be coached because it's so easy for us to get used to being the one-sided, I'm always giving instruction, but I'm never receiving any.
Totally.
And I'll be the first one to attest to it. It was a few years ago that I started doing just some very basic mixed martial arts stuff, some jiu-jitsu and some Muay Thai. And it was actually during COVID, just to kind of, release some stress, get a good workout in, all that type of stuff. And I found out how uncoachable I was. I was just terrible. I mean, it was all the same things that drove me nuts as I was coaching my own guys that I found myself saying, I know, or, bad body language or not giving eye contact or, all of that type of stuff. And a light bulb clicked for me. And I said, this is so important that as a coach, you're constantly finding ways to be coached so that you understand what it's like to receive coaching. Because you forget that pretty quickly. you forget that pretty quickly how it is to be coached.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've never even thought about that. As a coach, I've only coached little mite hockey, so it's a little different. But that's a great perspective. Like, to be a good coach, you need to know how it is to be coached from others. So
consistently, whatever it is, whether you're taking piano lessons or golf lessons, like you have to find a way to implement that into your lifestyle, because you can, like I said, you can very quickly forget what it's like to be on the other side of it.
Definitely. Well, Ty, we're kind of running out of time here, but just want to thank you for taking an hour to chat about your new endeavor as the head coach, and congratulations again. And just, with our In Sports Foundation, would love to continue to collaborate with you to find ways for your team to give back to youth baseball. I know we've been talking about it for a while now, but would just be great to find a partnership there where we can, take all the knowledge and hard work that your players and your coaching staff have gone through and put that effort into youth to try to get them excited about whether it's baseball, lacrosse, hockey, whatever it is. I think there's a great partnership opportunity there, and I know we've been talking about it, but would love to continue talking about it and actually put something together that we can work on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really, really, really appreciate what you do for not just In Sports, but for the greater Twin Cities community here in providing opportunities and education as it pertains to sports. It's just, it really is unmatched what you guys do, and certainly looking forward to years of partnership with you guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Ty. When does the season start? Is the schedule out yet?
Schedule's not out yet, but we'll start the third week in February. So
okay.
It's snow will be flying, but we'll be on planes headed south, and then we'll be back at US Bank Stadium come March. So we'll be right to it.
Awesome. Well, good luck with the recruiting season and practice. Fall ball once school starts, and I'm sure we'll get out to a few games this year.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Max.
Yep. Thanks, Ty. Have a good one.
See ya.
Thank you for tuning in to the Athletes in Sports podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take the time to follow, subscribe, like on all the channels. This is how we can continue to bring these inspiring stories to you and make a bigger impact to get more kids into the game.